Welcome back to another episode of Harmonious at Lunch, the show that fuels your business success. I'm Brandon Gano, your host and guide through the world of harmonious business growth. Today, we're unlocking powerful strategies with industry experts to help your business thrive. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or executive, you are in the right place. Join me and our incredible guests today on the journey to clarity, growth, and success. It is time to revolutionize your approach to business. Let's dive in with another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Welcome back into some more bite-sized business advice. We got an episode today. We're going to be talking about leadership in the 21st century. And I just want to say, just from getting to know my guests a little bit before we started recording, we have a lot of myths to debunk here in like 15 minutes, and we have a lot to cover. All right, so tune in, put your 2X earbuds on, and we're going to get through this real quick. So Alan Lazaros, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Brandon, thank you for having me. I do not take it lightly to speak into the lives of others. I was preparing mentally for this as I researched your show earlier, and I was just thinking it's really cool. 9 years ago, I started listening to podcasts, and they really changed my trajectory, and now I'm on the other end of that, helping people in their lives. So it's pretty cool. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I hear that loud and clear. And first of all, I'm glad one of us is prepared mentally for this. I'll just leave that there. But as far as this show itself, I kind of created this for that same reason, because I used to be a podcast junkie, and it sounds like you have a similar backstory. I just wanted like more of that personal development. And as I grew my business journey, I started realizing that not all advice was good advice. You can't really trust everybody on the internet, and you don't really know their backstory. So personally, I try to bring guests on who are vulnerable, transparent, open, and who can actually help the listener. And I try to be the same thing in my journey. That kind of leads us into the conversation of today, where we were just talking behind the scenes here about people who are real and who are not so authentic in the business leadership space. So when we're talking about leadership in the 21st century, anchor us in there. Where do we have to start with this conversation in your eyes?
The fact that leading by example is something that is it's the simplest leadership principle. Simple, but it's also the hardest to actually do. And I told you 9 years ago, I was also personal development junkie, big time, obsessed. Every book I could get my hands on. And then eventually I grew my business as well. And I ended up meeting a lot of these mentors and people. And behind the scenes, I went, every pedestal was just destroyed for me. I've coached rich people, famous people, multimillionaires, XYZ, mentors. I've been a mentor and been mentored by all the different and several of the big names. And I'm not going to name drop here, but at the end of the day, it was alarming to me. And what I mean by alarming is you can scream into a microphone and say, you got to grind and you got to grind, and then you're completely out of shape. You don't go to the gym. You you take better care of your Porsche than your own family. And for me, I grew up without a father. My father passed away when I was 2 years old. And so I've been looking for a male role model my entire life. And quite frankly, I eventually woke up and matured and did therapy and realized I'm going to have to become it, because quite frankly, I don't know if it's out there. And so now I've become that for many of our listeners. And I have a young client, he's 18, and I'm a mentor to him. But at the end of the day, be the change you wish to see in the world. The change I wish to see in the world is that people walk as much as they talk. And it's easy to talk about fitness. It is not easy to get your butt in the gym every single day. And that's just the facts. And I used to be too much of a coward to actually call that out.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a good perspective too. Beautiful principle. Be the change you want to see in the world. How much of that backstory shapes this particular conversation about leadership in the 21st century, about people actually doing what they say they're going to do? It sounds, you have obviously a challenging past. How does that get you here?
Well, the first step of that is the short answer is yes, it definitely does. And I talked to you a little bit in the pre-chat about, before we hit record, I said whatever bothers you in the world. So now I coach a lot of different people. So I want you to know I'm not just talking here. I have a 10,000 hour tracker, and I do podcasting, speaking, coaching, and training. And I'm coming up on my 10,000 hours. I just surpassed 8,000. And what that means, rather than me just bragging about myself, is all different industries, all different backgrounds, all different countries, all different people. And I'm talking, I usually go over the hour. I'm long-winded. We'll figure that out on this episode. So it's just a lot of, that's my study. I've been studying humans, all different. And you realize when you're coaching, this is not a you problem. This is a human problem. And so all these people that I call it the inverse 10 law. If someone is portraying level 10 success, that means they are probably 1/10 as successful as you think. If someone is not portraying success at all, they're probably 10 times more successful than they look. And I've found that to be very, very, very true. And then even fewer people are holistic. Health, wealth, and love is what we do at Next Level University. So health is physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. Love is friendships, family, intimate relationship, colleagues, clients, mentors, mentees, that whole thing, relationships. And then wealth. How do you build it? Do you enjoy what you do for a living? How much do you make? Is that increasing or decreasing? And then where do you invest it? And so very few people are holistic. And so when I was younger, to bring it back to the original question, I was looking for a male role model, not consciously. I wasn't consciously, I'm looking for a male role model. I only realized in my 30s when I started doing therapy that that's what I've always been after, because my stepdad didn't really want kids. My father passed away when I was 2. My real last name's actually McCorkle, not Lazarus. That's my stepfather's name. And I haven't seen him since I was 14 years old. He left with his entire extended family at 14. I haven't seen a single one of them since. I did talk to him briefly on Facebook Messenger. But without going into all that, because we don't have the time, quite frankly, I was very disappointed. And maybe this is different for other people, but as I've grown and evolved and matured as a man who wants to be better and get better every day, I'm very disappointed with the people I grew up with. Like the adults that we thought knew. I mean, how little did they actually know? And they pretended they did. That's the problem. If you don't know, that's fine. Own it. But don't try to guide me and pretend to be this amazing human being when you're not putting in any work on yourself. And so I grew up in what I playfully refer to as the Boulevard of Broken Dreams. And it's small town, small mind. Everyone around me seemed miserable, but they were putting on a show. That's the truth. And I used to, like I said, not have the courage to say that, particularly not in a public medium, right? And it wasn't all bad. But I would say, looking back, based on my current awareness, it's like when you rewatch a movie as an adult and you go, I can't believe I watched that as a kid. That was so bad, like an American Pie movie or something like that. It's like, I can't believe my 11-year-old brain was watching that. And so you just realize these things and you think adults have it figured out, and they don't. And the ones that bother me are the ones who pretend they do. And so ironically, the people who actually do have it figured out, they're not the ones barking saying I have it all figured out. They're the ones saying, I'm still trying to figure it out. And so now I've become one of those people who, I don't have it all figured out, but it turns out I have a lot more figured out than a lot of the people that I used to look up to. And so be careful when you meet your heroes, because they will fall from the pedestal for sure.
It's an interesting story. And I want to sit with that, the 1/10 and 10x rule for a bit. Like if I could just sit here and absorb that and just think about everyone that I've ever met, I'm sure that's 100% true, which blows my mind. But the thing that is really interesting about what you said in terms of leadership in particular, that's one of the things that terrifies me, especially having 3 little kids, seeing that in my own upbringing, the facade, if you will, not just about parents, but everybody. When you're a little kid, everybody seems like they have it together. And then when I got into the business world, as an employee at a younger age, I saw that in those leaders. And I then became that when I had my own business, because I thought that's just, well, every other adult around me is faking it till they make it. That seems like it. And It wasn't until a few years in that I realized that is not cool. That is not the way to do it. So
and deeply unfulfilling. It's deeply unfulfilling. That's the problem. Correct. I did the same thing, brother. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've had my own journey. I've come to terms with that and realized what true leadership is. But I think a lot of people still are stuck in that fake until they make it mentality. So for you, define for me leadership in the 21st century. What is that? What is the proper way to do that?
So you and I think we're similar in this regard. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I've noticed that everyone's righty or lefty. And everyone thinks they're right, which is why no one is. It's this weird thing. Life is a spectrum. And so I was the computer engineer, master's in business, headed to Fortune 500, CEO of a tech company, like my hero at the time, Steve Jobs. Again, no longer my hero. I respect and admire a lot of what he did, but not the greatest leader in some regards. The point that I'm making, though, is I was professionally developed. Resume, cover letter, LinkedIn, corporate, professional. But inside, I didn't do the work. I was improvement oriented and achievement oriented, and I always have been, but I wasn't self improvement oriented. I wasn't personally developed. I wasn't mental health therapy. I always joke, I say, guys can barely ask for direction, never mind get a therapist. So I'm very grateful to be part of the statistic of a man with a therapist, because that's statistically lower than women with a therapist. I think women are naturally more humble. That's my freaking truth there. Now, I got in a car accident when I was 26 that flipped the script for me. My dad died in a car accident when I was 2. He was 28. I got in my own car accident at 26 and I faced mortality. Now, I was physically okay, fortunately, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, I faced all my poor choices, all my regrets. I realized I was deeply unfulfilled, and I realized that I was professionally developed but not personally developed. I was successful, 1% global earner in corporate, selling industrial automation equipment as an outside sales engineer for a company called Cognex, but I wasn't inner fulfillment. And so I flipped the script and I went all in on fulfillment after that. So I've been successful and unfulfilled, which sucks. And then I went all the way broke to fulfilled and unsuccessful, which, by the way, also sucks, just not as much. And then now I'm 9 years later, 7 years into my own business, and I'm very grateful to say that I'm now successful and fulfilled, and I just want to amplify that. And so if you're out there, to answer your original question, what is leadership in the 21st century? It's righty and lefty. It's ambidextrous. I have these amazing, personally developed, inner work, heart-driven, wonderful human beings who have high self-awareness. They understand themselves and their ego, but they're not successful in the economy. Not all of them. Some of them are, but not really. And then I've got these professionally developed ding-dongs that are so successful, brother, in money, but they are children on the inside who are just ego-driven, arrogant, don't even know it, can't look in any mirror whatsoever, metaphorically or literally. And it's like, oh no, rut-row, those are the people we look up to? Rut-row. So for me, you need to be holistic. I can't have you preaching about maximizing your potential, screaming into the microphone while obese. I'm not trying to be unkind to people. I want to help you. But the only way to help you is candor, rationality, and candor. I have to be honest. And being honest is, listen, I've worked out every day for 2.25 years, every day. We started a little fitness challenge. It started out with just 4 months, and then we went to a year, and then my girlfriend said, let's do it forever, and I had a panic attack. But we did it, and we've been doing it. It's only 35 minutes. Walking counts, soccer counts, basketball, whatever. Weight training is most of it. At the end of the day, I will never, ever, ever tell someone else to exercise unless I am exercising. Ever. Because that's what bothers me in the world. If you are out there and you are not leading by example, we're not going to get along. Now, that said, I was looking for a role model who I think was virtuous, intelligent, and holistic. And I did not find what I was looking for. So I worked really hard to become it. So whatever it is you're looking for, maybe my standards are different. They probably are. We're all unique. Whatever you're looking for out there, build it in here. That's leadership in the 21st century.
So it's easy to say as a principal listening to this, if you're a leader hearing this saying, okay, I can do that. What's the next step though? Because the person listening to this has a team, they have employees, they are a leader to some degree. How good or bad they want to rate themselves is a different story, but they need to show up with congruence to their team, to their people, because they're thinking the same thing. If they're looking at you and you're overweight and you're saying you guys need to be in better shape, well, he's not, so why should I? It's the lead by example thing that you're saying. So how do you flip that script immediately and say, I have not been leading by example. I have not been congruent with my words. I have not been, let's use the name of the show, harmonious in the way I'm acting and speaking. What do you do then? You have that come to Jesus moment and you need to change in your life or get real. How do you go about that?
I love the harmony thing, by the way. I think harmony is great. A lot of people talk about balance. Harmony is the way. I love it. So the answer to that question is the first step is the admittance. It's what you just said of listen, and I have this triad of transformation is what I call it, and I took a fire protection engineering course in college and I loved it, and it was you need heat, fuel, and oxygen in order to create fire, and so I created this little framework. It's a triad, and you need humility, you need courage, and you need vulnerability to create transformation. Because the first step to solving a problem or improving something is admitting that it's not as good as it could be. And that's hard for people. I get it. It took a car accident for me to look in the mirror. So I get it. I had my ego up here, and that had to burn to the ashes so the phoenix could re-rise. And the new version of me came out of that. And fortunately, that was my wake-up call. I'm grateful for that in hindsight, even though it was very traumatic at the time. Mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Physically, I was good. But so that's the first step is you got to look in the mirror yourself. Physically, look in the mirror. And are you proud of that person? Are you your own hero? Are you go back in time. My therapist, we do some different work together, and she said, "What does little Alan want to say to you?" And I had this really cool little meditation where it was like, "Whoa." And my girlfriend, she's gorgeous and amazing, and it's like, you date her, right? It's like that little version of you. Like, have you become your own hero? And in the past, I couldn't say I did. In the past, there are times where I definitely could not look in the mirror and say, you are your own hero. And until you get to the point where you can, you're not going to be able to authentically lead other people. Become your own hero. And rather than some motivational quip, to your point, what does that look like in a practical sense? It looks like figure out, I used to think, I have this framework, I call it, we've all heard the fixed and growth mindset thing. There's super fixed, there's semi-fixed, there's centered, then there's growth, and then there's super growth. I went from semi-fixed, where I could improve externally, but I wasn't focused on internal growth, to super growth. And super growth is actually very delusional, which I learned the hard way, which is anyone can achieve anything. And you realize, listen, I'm not going to beat LeBron James at basketball. We all have certain potential, okay? So I try to encourage people to be very pragmatic and practical. And I used to think that you could change yourself. Oh, if I don't like it, I can just change it. I actually coach a lot of people now, and I realize you can't change people at their core. What you can do is get the junk off the core, face the fears of the core, and own the strengths and the weaknesses of the core, and then you can amplify the best version of that. So I used to say you can achieve this and become this person. Now I say, no, let's go to who you really are and uncover it. And then let's amplify and grow that, rather than the facade or the fake it till you make it. Some people are heart driven and they need a personal trainer to show up to the gym. And if the trainer is sitting there waiting, they will never miss. There's other people that don't need that. I don't. I am my own accountability. Other people, you can't get them to the gym unless they have a trainer sitting there waiting. That's okay. Own that. I'm a rational computer engineer, mathematical, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, business, and finance mind. I've tried to be well-rounded and empathetic and warm and loving, and I do okay with it, but I'm not ever going to, that's not my strength zone. Okay? Structure, discipline, habit tracking, numbers, metrics, that's my modality of thinking, that's my modality of life. And I need to lean into that while understanding the downsides of that. And so what 21st century leadership is uncovering who you actually are, realizing the downsides of the strengths that you have, owning the strength, and then mitigating some of the downside and or facing the fear of that downside. So with Kev, my business partner, he is naturally empathetic, naturally warm. Everybody likes the guy. He's super relatable. So we give a speech in front of 1,000 kids together. I'm afraid to be hated. He's afraid he's not going to add value. I'm not afraid of not adding value at all. I'll get you thinking differently. I'll change your whole world if you listen. But if you hate me, you won't listen. I'm not a naturally likable guy. I get it. People know I don't struggle with self-doubt. Ooh, not like me. Kevin struggles with self-doubt. Super relatable. My vulnerability isn't I struggle with self-doubt. My vulnerability is I don't. And I'm not like you. And it's scary to say that, because now you're going to think I'm arrogant and hate me. And if you hate me, I can't help you. And there goes my mission. So when I had social cowardice, I was a coward. I didn't want to share my strengths. I was not afraid to share my weaknesses. I'm insecure about my calves, and I'm tall and lanky, and I bodybuild because of it. Like, I have no problem. Some people have no problem sharing weaknesses, but they're so scared to share their strengths. Kev, the opposite. Doesn't want anyone to know his weaknesses, but he wants to amplify his strengths. He is vulnerable sharing his weaknesses. But he's relatable in that sense. So he feels super likable and lovable. I feel unlikable and unlovable, but yet he struggles with competence. I don't struggle with competence much. I feel like success has always come easy. Right? Okay, so owning who you are and what you are and leading by example, that done. There's leadership in a nutshell. That there is nothing beyond those two. If you get those two right, everything else, in my honest opinion, can fall into place.
I've seen that play out for multiple people that I've known. We're not going to use the people on the internet who portray that certain way, but I mean, for people who I know, friends, close colleagues, relationships, I see that to be 100% true. And I love the principle. If more people would embrace it or even know about it, I think that'd be amazing. You said to me before we got on, we're going to have a tough time cramming this into 15 minutes. Boy, you were right. And this flew by. This went way too quick. And I want to ask 1,000 more questions and go way deeper, but we can't. So if the audience, the listener wants to go deeper, you want them to go to your website. I'll put that on the screen. It's down in the show notes below. What do you have on their website for people to take that next step with you?
First of all, Brandon, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the questions. At the end of the day, we get to speak into the lives of other people. You never know who needs to hear this on the other end. And the 21st century allows that. How cool. You got an iPhone and some earbuds, amazing, and you can get a great education. Because I wouldn't have been able to be educated when my stepdad left. 90% of the income was gone, and I didn't know how I was going to go to college. And the college I got into and wanted to go to was $50,000 a year, and we didn't have any money. So I had to bootstrap and get scholarships and financial aid. And fortunately, I was in a country that invested in my mind. And so now everyone has that opportunity for free. So thank you for what you're doing in the world. I used to say I really want personal development to spread like COVID, and then I realized that would come off wrong. So the point is, I want personal development and self-improvement and leadership by example to spread rapidly. But I also don't use the COVID thing because I know that was hard on a ton of people. So that said, where can you find me? nextleveluniverse.com, just like it sounds. The podcast is actually Next Level University, to imply learning how to get to the next level. No matter how hard your past has been, you have a bigger, better, brighter future waiting for you on the other side of some new choices. I hope that we want to be holistic self-improvement in your pocket every single day. We do an episode every day, completely free from anywhere on the planet, 1% improvement per day every day. So Next Level University is the podcast, nextleveluniverse.com. We've got a journal that is right here. It's called the Dreamliner. We've got monthly meetups. We've got book club. We've got a group coaching program we do every quarter. We do a live event every year. We've got 2 different charity events that we do for boys without fathers, because Kevin and I both didn't have fathers growing up. So we got a lot going on, and I appreciate it. And reach out, connect with us if you're interested. If you're interested in being more successful or more fulfilled or both, then NLU is a place that you will massively benefit from.
Here's what I didn't put together until you were literally just talking. Shame on me, but also I love that this happened by accident. Your business partner was on this show, and his episode aired roughly 2 months ago on June 18th, if you're listening to this live. And he was
it's a tough
awesome
act to
dude.
Follow.
And I can also, like, I can compare in real time what you're saying. Like, I noticed all those things about Kevin versus you, and he kind of said some of that stuff too. I love that you're able to kind of put the bookend on this, and I personally love this episode. I appreciate you coming on here, sharing your wisdom, your story, and this was fascinating. So if you're listening, first and foremost, go subscribe, but go check out that episode too, and definitely go check out Next Level Universe and what they got going on over there on the podcast. It's another daily show. They're crazy dudes, just like me over here. But Alan, I got to end the episode. I love to end the episodes with a question, but it's a question from you. I personally believe, and we believe here at What If, that powerful questions get powerful answers. That's why there's an obnoxious lit up question mark behind me. But I want to know, for the listener, there was a lot we talked about in this episode, and you could just go off at rabbit holes in every single direction. What is the most powerful question they can ask themselves to help them propel their life, their business, their goals, whatever it is, to that next level in their own lives?
The existential question, which is how can I design a life of meaning and avoid shiny object syndrome?
Very tough for this audience, business owners and entrepreneurs. But I love that question. That's beautiful. Wherever you're watching and listening, make sure you subscribe. Thank you, Alan, for being here. Thank you for listening. We'll see you on the next episode of Harmonious.